What is up, YouTube? Today's video, Jujutsu Kaisen keeps dropping bangers. This chapter is crazy. I'm telling y'all, man, y'all got to understand how crazy this chapter is. And how it begins is with Yuji deciding he will crush the heart of Sukuna. He's still feeling the loss of his brother Choso, so this has a little bit of revenge to it. This also seems to be a callback to when Satoru Gojo had decided he was going to crush Sukuna's heart because he was mad at what Sukuna was doing to Yuji. Just as Sukuna chants domain expansion, he sees Gojo standing right there. In disbelief, Sukuna wonders if it's really Gojo. However, he dismisses the thought, saying it's impossible because he cleaved Gojo, actually dismantled. He dismantled Gojo in half. But it clicks to him who it is, and this is one of the craziest reveals ever. Sukuna punches Yuji away, and when he moves forward, he says, "I apologize for underestimating you. I didn't know you can go this far, Yuta Okosu." So the Gojo that's standing before Sukuna is Yuta. That is insane because we didn't expect that. I thought it was just Sukuna being close to death. But to find out that Yuta took his body, that's crazy. And we see the marks on Gojo's forehead, which indication that it's Kenjaku's curse technique. And that's when the chapter goes back to a flashback with Yuta deciding to have Rika devour Kenjaku and copy his curse technique. So it seems like Rika has to bite into someone or devour someone body part for Yuta to copy the curse technique. But Maki objects to this idea. Hikari also objects to the plan, but he's okay with it with one condition, and the condition is that Yuta will only use this plan when everyone has been wiped out and they don't have any other option. So this is a last resort. Kusakabe asks if Yuta can't just copy Limitless, but Shoko shares that one cannot use Limitless without 6 eyes. We know this because Limitless is an extremely difficult technique to master, even with the 6 eyes. It took Satoru Gojo almost dying before he fully mastered the technique. That's how powerful and crazy Limitless is. That's when Kusakabe suggests to Yuta to copy the 6 eye. But Shoko corrects him by saying that 6 eyes are part of his physical body and not a curse technique, so Yuta cannot copy it. Maki asks, since Yuta can use the copy technique for only 5 minutes, what will happen after time runs out? To which Yuta said that he does not know. Mei shares the 3 possibilities to Yuta taking over Satoru's body. Number 1, Kenjaku's curse technique needs constant activation, which means that the body and soul won't be able to be maintained, which means Yuta will die. Number 2, the curse technique is active intermittently, which means that Yuta will die over time. So he ain't going to die right away, but the more he's in the body, the more likely he's going to die. And the third, and this one is the craziest one, which is that it only needs to be activated once. After that, he will forever be in Satoru Gojo's body. So once the 5 minutes up, he can't even return back to his old body. But we're going to get to his old body in a little bit. Yuta says that he knows that this is a last resort, so he will first try to defeat Sukuna with his own domain. If he can't, he will take over Gojo's body. Maki is objecting to this plan, and truthfully, I don't blame her for that. I mean, if we think about this, if Yuta survives this battle with Sukuna, he could be stuck in Satoru Gojo's body forever. That means if Yuta had a child, it would technically be Satoru Gojo's child because it is Satoru's body. It's just Yuta's soul in Satoru's body. But obviously Yuta doesn't care because he's starting to get ticked off. Although Kusakabe calls it a good plan, he also thinks that they're just worried about Yuta as a person, which makes Yuta snap because he said, what does he mean by person? They're about to fight the history's strongest Jujutsu sorcerer. He further states that if they can win by throwing away their humanity, then they should have been doing that a while ago. They shouldn't even have to argue about it. Yuta also asks if everyone is afraid of becoming monsters to fight Sukuna. Maki rebucks Yuta, saying that everyone's just concerned about him. Yuta asks everyone about Gojo, asking if he's not an important person to them. He asks, haven't they already been pushing all the burden of becoming monsters on him alone? Yuta asks him if Gojo is gone, then who else will be the monster? He then claims that if no one intends to be the monster, he will become the monster. And this dude is like completely tripping. I think he's like super tripping because even though Gojo was the strongest sorcerer, Gojo kind of chose to be alone in the sense because how he viewed strength. So I don't understand what Yuta's over there babbling about, talking about being a monster. Like, dude, you got to chill with that. That's when the scene then switches to Yuta sharing his plan with Gojo, to which Gojo replies that he's fine with it. Gojo also just tells Yuta he doesn't intend on losing, and if that happens, then he does not care what happened to his dead body. I mean, that's obvious, bro. You about to die. Gojo says that he's more pissed that Shoko didn't care what happened to his body. I kind of feel him on that, but Shoko actually does care what happens to Gojo's body. She actually does care about Gojo as a friend. So, I mean, Gojo actually has that wrong. And Yuta and Gojo talk about whether Yuta is descendant of the Fujiwara or the Sugawara, which is a callback to the fight that Yuta had, and she kept calling them Fujiwara. And Gojo says Yuta might be born under better circumstances than him. So if Yuta can't take advantage of that, he is totally lame. Gojo always cracking jokes, even though we know what happened to Gojo. Gojo then says, let's start off with your sloppy curse energy. I've always told you to be careful about that. Gojo then asks his students to go away as he doesn't want them to see a bloody sight, especially since he doesn't know what he's about to do is right. They all decline this. Also, this is a callback to all the original heroes with Maki, Yuta, Panda, Inomaki. Yeah. This is a callback to Tokyo Metropolis, the original 4 heroes. Gojo then says if he loses to Sukuna and all the old geezers are gone in the room, then Gakuganje will stand on top of the Jujutsu headquarters. And Gojo has some trust in Gakuganje because Gakuganje had gotten a curse placed upon him, and he never told the higher-ups, even though he had valuable information. And if that happens, there won't be any more chaos like the post-Shibuya incident. That's why I'm saying that he has so much faith in Gakuganje. Gojo then once again tells the student to go away, but then again, they still decline him. Yuta tells Gojo not to become a monster by himself again. Gojo then replies saying that it's something he can't do. At that moment, he was left behind and had to catch up to him. This has been foreshadowed for 3 years that Gojo would take out the higher-ups, because if we remember back in chapter 10, Gojo stated that the higher-ups intentionally sent Yuji, Nobara, and Megumi to be killed by a special grade curse. It was technically just Yuji. They just happened to be collateral damage to that. And Gojo told Ichigi that he should kill the higher-ups, which freed Ichigi out. In chapter 139, Ino had told Megumi and Itadori that if the Gojo clan would go out of power, that the higher-ups would immediately deal with all those that they considered nuisance. When Satoru ended up getting sealed, that they immediately tried to kill Itadori. They also labeled Gojo a criminal and exiled him from the Jujutsu world, and even sentenced his principal to death. Then in chapter 147, they tried to get information from Masamichi on how curse corps work, with which Masamichi declined to tell, and Masamichi is Gojo's old principal. And they end up sending Gakuganji to kill Masamichi, and he ends up killing Masamichi, but Masamichi ended up giving Gakuganji the curse that I was talking about earlier by telling them how curse corps work, but Gakuganji never told the higher-ups how it works, which is crazy. But all of this accumulation led up to the higher-ups' death because they were willing to switch sides when Kenjaku was talking to them in order to stay in power. That's how desperate they were to stay in power. Also, Gojo wanted to catch up to Suguru because Suguru ended up killing an entire village just for 2 sorcerer girls. And I think that Gojo saw that and said maybe that he should have done something like that. So he has to catch up to Suguru for that reason. The scene switches again to Amai sharing his curse technique. And this is, one of, I would say, Yuji's, I guess, friends. He can amplify the sugar within himself, the glucose within himself, and he can output it in some way, which is hilarious because this dude power is basically, he has type 2 diabetes. And it's kind of an insane power because now he can control his blood sugar and all that, and then he can, use it in creative ways. Even he doesn't even know how his curse technique works, but Yuji was eating it, which was funny because Nito's out like, bro, what are you doing? You're really eating that? That's when Shoko decided to put him on the medical team because she wanted to use his sugar to help some of the injured victims and characters, but she also told him that he has to be careful because she don't want them to pass out because of high blood sugar, which is funny. But I think that's hilarious. That's when the scene switches back to the medical team bringing in Yuta. So we are seeing what happened to Yuta after his fight with Sukuna, and his body was technically cut in half because of the world cutting dismantle. And Arata had used this curse technique to prevent Yuta's wound from getting worse, but he thinks it's too late because he's been literally split in half like Satoru Gojo did. So Yuta's body is no longer good, and it's only being held together by Arata's technique, which is, like I said, it's insane. This dude is practically dead. He's like really dead, but he's only conscious because of Rika, but he's reaching his limit. So if he passes out, he's probably going to die. But that's when Shoko tells him that she's already stitched up Gojo's corpse. So all Yuta has to do is activate reverse curse technique to maximum capacity, and that's how he will complete the body. That's when the chapter jumps to the present, and that's when both Yuta in Gojo's body and Sukuna release their domain expansion. And that's when the narrator says that Gojo has already shown the solution to Sukuna's open barrier because we've seen that it takes 3 minutes, if I remember that correctly, about 3 minutes and like 27 seconds or 33 seconds or something like that they were saying. And that's how you take care of Sukuna's open domain, as well as while the Sukuna's domain is destroying unlimited void on the outside, you attack Sukuna on the inside. So that's pretty cool that we're getting a Sukuna Satoru Gojo round 2, even though it's Yuta in his body, but we'll see what happens. I hope they don't do that domain battle like they did a couple times with Gojo and Sukuna the first time. We don't need to see that. We got to see how this is going to work out because we're going to probably see Sukuna use domain amplification again, seeing as Yuta is using Gojo's body. But we'll see. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Did you guys enjoy this chapter? I surely did. What about you? Also, do not forget to subscribe to the channel. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Peace out, y'all.